Once upon a time, a witch loved stories galore, and greedy as she was, she wanted more and more. When she saw that the librarian had stories of all kinds, she said, "I'll capture you, all your stories will be mine." There took place a curious chase through meadow, tree, and flower, till at last they ended up right at the witch's tower. Now poor Marian the librarian, a prisoner she'll stay, until the witch is happy and lets Marian go away.
Hi, I've been getting some things together for our next story for Kerfumbly. Remember she said she wanted a biography? Can you say that word? Biography. Good. Say it again. Biography. A biography is the story of somebody's life. It could be the story of a very famous person, someone like George Washington, our first president, or Abraham Lincoln, another president. But today our biography is of George Washington Carver. He was a man who did many things. He was an artist, and he was a teacher, and a scientist. He also found many things that we could do with peanuts and with sweet potatoes. Let's put these in the machine and see if we get a story of his life. A teacher, artist, scientist, the sweet potato, the peanuts. And we'll turn the machine on. And the story is called A Weed is a Flower, the story of George Washington Carver. There's a song in this story that you can help sing if you'll just sing his name when the music starts, like this. George Washington Carver. Try it, will you? George Washington Carver. Good.
When George Washington Carver was born, he had many things against him. He was a sick, weak little baby. His father had just died, and his mother was left alone to care for him and for his brother James. And even worse, he was the son of slaves. There was no hope for the future. George Washington Carver, you were born a slave. George Washington Carver, you must learn to be brave. George Washington Carver was born in Missouri in 1860, more than 100 years ago. It was a terrible time. Mean men rode silently in the night, kidnapping slaves from their owners and harming those people who tried to stop them. One night, a band of these men rode up to the farm of Moses Carver, who owned George and his mother Mary. Everyone ran in fear, but before Mary could hide her baby, the men came and snatched them both and rode away into the night. Moses Carver sent a man to look for them. Mary was never found, but in a few days the man returned with a small bundle wrapped in his coat and tied to the back of the saddle. It was that baby, George. George Washington Carver, now your mama's gone. George Washington Carver, can you grow big and strong? Moses and his wife Susan cared for Mary's children. George remained small and weak, but as he grew, they saw that he was an unusual child. He wanted to know everything around him. He asked about the rain, the flowers, and the insects. He asked questions the Carvers couldn't answer. When he was very young, George kept a garden where he spent hours each day caring for his plants. If they weren't growing well, he found out why, and soon they were healthy and blooming. Neighbors began to ask George's advice about their plants, and soon he was known as the plant doctor. As time went on, George wondered about more and more things. He wanted to learn, and he yearned to go to school. George Washington Carver,
a boy who likes to learn.
George Washington Carver,
For school now you yearn. In the meantime, the slaves had been freed, but the schools nearby were not open to Negroes. So when he was 10, George left his brother, his garden, and the Carver farm, and he went off alone to find the answers to his questions. Wherever George Washington Carver found schools, he stayed. He worked for people to earn his keep. He scrubbed their floors, washed their clothes, and baked their bread. Whatever George did, he did well. Even the smallest chore was important to him. George worked hard for many years, always trying to save enough money for college. He was 30 years old before he had saved enough. But not all colleges would admit Negroes, even if they had the money. George was not discouraged. He moved to Iowa and found a college which was glad to have a Negro student. At college, George continued to work and to learn. He played the piano, he sang beautifully, and he was an outstanding painter. In fact, for a time, he thought of becoming an artist.
George Washington Carver,
You work, you paint, you sing.
George Washington Carver,
You can do anything. But the more George thought of what he wanted to do, the more he wanted to help his people. And he remembered that his neighbors used to call him the plant doctor. He had never forgotten his love for plants. So George Washington Carver chose to study agriculture. That means he learned about plants and flowers and soil. He learned the names of the weeds. Even they were important to him. He often said, "A weed is just a flower growing in the wrong place." He still asked questions. If no person or book could answer them, he found the answers himself. He experimented with his own plants, and he found secrets about them that no one else knew. When George finished college, he began to teach at Tuskegee Institute, a college in Alabama. There he taught his students and the poor Negro farmers. He taught them how to make their crops better.
George Washington Carver,
Learning how things grow,
George Washington Carver,
teaching what you know. Most of the farmers raised cotton. Professor Carver told them to plant other things as well. Sweet potatoes and peanuts were good crops. They were easy to grow. He said that raising only cotton harmed the soil. He said it was better if different crops were planted each year. The farmers did not want to listen. They were afraid to plant peanuts and sweet potatoes. They were sure that no one would buy them. But Professor Carver had discovered that many things could be made from the sweet potato. He had made soap, coffee, and starch, and more than 100 other things out of sweet potatoes. He found that still more things could be made from the peanut: paper, ink, shaving cream, sauces, shampoo, and even milk. Once, Dr. Carver invited important people to a dinner of soup, creamed mock chicken, bread, salad, coffee, candy, cake, and ice cream. Just think how surprised they were when they learned that everything they had eaten was made out of peanuts. Slowly, the farmers listened to George Washington Carver. They planted peanuts and sweet potatoes, and before they knew it, these became two of the most important crops in Alabama. Soon the whole country knew about Dr. Carver and the great things he was doing. He was honored by presidents and other important people.
George Washington Carver,
Everyone loves you.
George Washington Carver,
We love the things you do. Throughout his life, George Washington Carver asked nothing of others. Money was not important to him. He lived alone and took care of his own needs. He washed his own clothes and patched them, too. He used the soap he made and ate the food he grew. Even when he was over 80 and close to death, Dr. Carver kept working. Night after night, while the rest of the town was asleep, a light still shone in his window. George Washington Carver was no ordinary man. He was a man who turned evil into good, despair into hope, and he turned hate into love. He was a man who spent his whole life helping his people and all the people of the world.
George Washington Carver,
His work helped everyone.
George Washington Carver,
Thank you for what you've done. George Washington Carver was a really great man, wasn't he? I think Kerfumbly will like this biography. Will you help me call her? Left and right and Zachary Zoo, here is a story just for you.
Oh, I'm glad you called, Marion. I just finished getting everything you need for a biography.
But I already have a biography for you.
Oh, well, I'll look at it while you look at these things. Who's this biography about? George Washington Carver? Did the story begin when he was a little baby? Oh, it did. Was that a happy time? No? Why not? Because he was born a slave. And they took his mother away? Oh, dear. Well, when he was older, what did he like to do? Oh, he liked to learn about plants. And he wanted to go to school? Did he ever find a school to go to? Oh, he did. And when he was through with school, what did he do for a job? Oh, he was a teacher. Did he still work with plants? Good. What two plants did he do a lot of work with? Peanuts and sweet potatoes. Did George Washington Carver help people? Yes, he did. He was a great man, wasn't he? I like this biography, but I really wanted a biography about somebody else. Me.
Kerfumbly, this box is full of pictures of you.
Well, yes, I wanted a biography about me.
I don't think we can do that.
Why not?
Well, because biographies are about people that have done really great things.
Well, all right. You wait right here. I'm going to go out and do something fantastic. You'll see. I can be famous, too.
Kerfumbly, now what is she going to do? Will you come back and find out next time? Good. I'll see you then.
Once upon a time, a witch loved stories galore, and greedy as she was, she wanted more and more. When she saw that the librarian had stories of all kinds, she said, I'll capture you, all your stories will be mine. There took place a curious chase through meadow, tree, and flower, till at last they ended up right at the witch's tower. Now poor Marian, the librarian, a prisoner she'll stay, until the witch is happy and lets Marian go away.